Everybody able to hear us here in Public Works room? Or from the Public Works room? Everybody not in the Public Works room, are you able to hear us?
I can hear you fine.
Thank you.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Good to see a lot of people in person. Glad for those that could make it, and glad to have the rest of you remotely. So let's go around the table clockwise for introductions, and then we'll get the people on Zoom. So I'm Clancy Black, TMAC chair.
Mike Andrews, HDR. We're
McDonald with HDR. Rob Hunter with the city.
UD Johnson with the city engineering.
Kehan Shore, Transportation Engineer, Public Works, City.
I'm Greg McFarland. I'm a member of the TMAC and a professor at BYU.
This is Dandy.
I'm McMurray, TMAC Vice Chair.
Lisa Jessen, TMAC Planning Commission Rep.
I'm Jeff McLaughlin, a member of the public.
In here, and then looks like let's go Kurt, and then Dave, and then Melissa. I guess Melissa's just recording. Yeah,
Kurt already introduced himself.
On so I can share.
Oh, sorry.
He's there so he can share.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So then we've got Dave. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
David Arnold. I'm on TMAC.
And then I need to read the bottom of this, right? Due to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic and Utah County's high level of coronavirus transmission, the Provo City Transportation and Mobility Advisory Committee has determined to hold hybrid meetings with an anchor location and online. We invite interested persons to participate online by watching the live broadcast at YouTube Provo Channel 17 or Facebook Provo Channel 17, or at Provo City's Public Works Building Conference Rooms 3 and 4.
Sorry, Clancy. I thought I heard Channel 17. Channel 17, are you able to hear us?
Muted.
Let me try adding and make sure. Two. Able to record, so hopefully they are able to hear us. Yeah, it looks like it's. So, okay. Go. Okay.
And yeah, for those that aren't here to send comments to the committee or weigh in on current issues, email them to jjohnson@provo.org. Okay, our first action item is to approve the minutes from our previous meeting, March 17th, 2022. Those were sent out, and so hopefully everyone had a chance to review. Do we have any comments or changes that need to be made to the? I will motion then that we approve the minutes. Do we have a second? And then all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, so minutes are approved. And we will go to item 3, University Avenue.
Training today, he couldn't make it.
Okay, so, well, just as a kind of a quick introduction.
Sorry, Rob, I meant to say one thing. Time-wise, I want to make sure we get to the safe routes thing because we already.
And however long you want to talk.
Yeah, we're good then.
So,
and Jim is here now. Jim Hamill, TMAC committee member. Making it, Jim.
we asked
the, HDR team, that's the consultant for, UDOT to come in and make this presentation. So for a couple of reasons, just kind of introduce you to what they're doing on, the bridge, and then also to get some initial feedback. They're just barely starting, into the design process. They're as much on the, I think, information gathering stage as anything. And so just wanted to see what initial feedback y'all might have also as we talk about what, official term would be betterments, but basically what we want to ask for from an aesthetic standpoint. They'll go over what UDOT can cover and then what the city would need to cover if we want to upgrade. This is going to be a major entrance into downtown Provo. Is one already, will continue to be as they rebuild the bridge. And so just wanted to kind of get some initial feedback from you as we start into the design of this bridge. Sharing.
Feel free to interrupt, ask any questions that you have. I'll just start out. I'll just give you an overview of the project. We'll go through the UDOT aesthetics policies.
I'm only hearing about half of what you say for some reason. I'm not sure why. Maybe you get closer to the microphone.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, move the mic towards me. Then we'll have a discussion about aesthetics. You can ask questions, provide ideas, or whatever. Probably all familiar with the Viaduct location. It's on University Avenue over 6 South and UPRR and UTA near the Intermodal Hub. Connects downtown Provo to I-15 exit 3. Excuse me. Here's a quick satellite just showing Viaduct, the frontage road on the north and the south side. This is a section of the existing structure, so it's got a 4-foot median and roadway, 3-foot shoulders, and that says 5-foot sidewalks, but a lot of that's taken up with the barrier. I'm sure you're. This is the current proposed bridge configuration layout. So right now we're considering a 3-span. Widened, you can see that it's widened above the existing, shifted slightly to the west, north is to the right. I want to stress that the existing viaduct is a 14-span structure. As a cost-saving measure, we hope to reduce that to a 3-span structure and replace the viaduct with embankment. And those purple shaded areas are the areas proposed to replace bridge with embankment. It will remove all the parking under the viaduct.
We have a meeting set up to discuss, proposing how that impacts.
This is a considered proposed typical section right now. You can see a 12-foot median, 2 lanes in each direction, 10-foot shoulders in there, and a 6-foot separated sidewalk. We're still working on those sidewalks, but this is where chain link fence on the outside. So this is a cross section of the span itself. Similar cross section at the bent. And structural word just meaning the columns that hold up the bridge. The cross section at the embankment on the north. Okay, there's a lot of text here, and we can talk about as much as you want, but basically this is UDOT's guidelines, and they say generally about 0.75% is allocated to aesthetics on a UDOT project, to be determined by the UDOT project manager. And furthermore, UDOT's policy is to coordinate with qualities regarding aesthetics. This is UDOT's baseline aesthetic treatments, and I'll go through this carefully and feel free to ask questions, but we'll start structure elements. So bents, those are the columns that hold up the baseline is natural concrete, so that's just smooth, unpainted concrete. Abutments, that's where the bridge meets the embankment. That's called the abutment. The baseline is 1-inch textural relief. That means there can be a Formliner on there showing some kind of design or pattern that's 1 inch deep.
On the side or on the flat surface?
Vertical surfaces. Natural concrete, non-tinted ceiling. Parapets, UDOT standard, which would just be on a slope, single slope on traffic sides, vertical face outside a bridge, and it's natural concrete. So girders have color treatments. That means you a color for the girders. Railing is chain link. Slope paving, so possible enhancements there using the aesthetic budget. Why they changed from bents to piers, but they're the same. Could be custom designed or modified to include texture or color treatment. In it, you could put a Formliner. For the abutments, increase the textural relief. So instead of 1 inch, it could be 2 inches. Pieces, paint, bridge monuments, parapets, put caps, windows, reveals. Railing could be custom designed. Ornamental fence, thanks Mike. And slope paving can, I don't think we need to cover that, but so retaining walls, and there'll be quite a few, well, a length of retaining walls. So on the north and the south side, there'll be a retaining wall that runs along the embankment, along the abutment, and back along the embankment, both sides. So this is going to be several hundred feet of retaining wall. So right now the baseline is 1 inch textural relief with no paint, and the enhancement would be deeper relief, color treatment, so it could be painted. Don't anticipate noise walls or barriers on this project. There may be some park strips, we're not sure. The baseline right now would be stamped colored concrete. And that's in urban areas. We won't have any residential park strips. Landscaping baseline is topsoil, seeding, and mulch. Enhancement could be trees, shrubs, ground covers, irrigation, ornamental walls, mulch, most strips. The lighting for the baseline for lighting is the UDOT Cobra style lighting, so that's just vertical post with an angle LED. Not ornamental, it's just what you see on UDOT roads. Enhancement would be maybe different shape of pole or powder coated poles. Sidewalks, natural concrete, 5 feet wide, 6 feet at back of curb. Enhancement would be wider sidewalks. This project right now is, UDOT's already committed to 6-foot sidewalks on each side, and we're in discussion with Provo about. And then maybe there are no site amenities, but possible enhancements could be benches, trash cans, kiosks, plants. So the asterisks, if you're wondering what that means, that just means if the anything with an asterisk means for that aesthetic element to exist, there has to be an agreement with the city to. Okay, so this is a bridge that I found that's probably the closest I could find to baseline UDOT aesthetics. So you can see here, natural concrete bent, abutments, so the bent's on the left, abutments on the right. It's all natural concrete, unpainted. It's got a chain link fence, and it has a colored girder. So that's baseline. And you can note that the bent columns and caps don't have Formliner, the abutment and wing walls. The wing walls are on the far right of the photo. No texturing. Maybe this is slightly below baseline, because they could have textured the retaining walls.
When you say text, what does that look like, or what does that mean?
I'll show you some other photos here, but it means a Formliner, so I guess a good example through Utah County is on I-15, the noise walls have that mountain scene.
Yeah.
That's a Formliner.
Are those ones an inch deep, or are those an upgrade?
Those are an inch deep. Yeah, if you've been to, say, Bangor Highway in Salt Lake County and seen the Formliner on those abutment walls, those are 2+ inches deep. Okay, so this is also similar. I'll point out there is a Formliner on the parapet. So if you look at the bridge parapet, you can see the windows. Subtle. There also are some slight accents to the bents and columns. Colored girder. And you can see the Formliner on the MSE wall on the left of this photo. And that's actually, that Formliner is very similar to the Bangor Formliner. This would be baseline plus a little bit more. You can see the Formliner on the abutment. The fence is powder coated. The columns are textured. They've got those rings. It's got the acorn street lights. The parapets are textured too. And the acorn street lights are at bump outs. So this is slightly above that baseline. So those are the slides I have. At this point, I'm just hoping to have a discussion on questions or preferences, vision for this bridge that will go in.
Before that, Rob, so we're gonna provide feedback here, but we're not the deciding group here, right?
Correct.
I wanna understand that before we,
That's our, so there's,
or are we?
no. Well, at least that, not as of right now. Right now, we've discussed, we wanna get your initial feedback. There's a couple of groups in Provo, at least based off of the understanding that I have in engineering, that provide, art or architectural feedback on certain parts, but there's not necessarily one that would cover the bridge. And so we wanted to get your initial feedback, but there needs to be further discussion on, do we expand, do we say, hey, this may not be exactly this group's, what they're over, but we're gonna have them provide the kind of the final feedback or whatever. So this is initial discussion. Maybe the answer is we'll bring back to you for final, also, but,
Thanks for explaining that. Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, the first thing I wanna clarify is, if Provo does an enhancement above the UDOT standards, does Provo just, like above what UDOT would have covered, or if we change something, it's all ours?
Yeah, good question. So the rule of thumb is that 0.75% of the project cost is dedicated to aesthetics. That's dependent on the UDOT PM, but that's a good rule of thumb. So yeah, that money is dedicated to aesthetics, so the city can provide input for those elements. If the cost of those elements exceeds 0.75%, that would be on the city.
Okay, so it's okay. It may even be possible to have that 0.75% pay for something that's above baseline because they will have already agreed to pay for it.
Baseline is, below the 0.75%.
My question or my feedback element, as we were talking about this in I think it was a work meeting, thousands of units that are going in that new development northwest of the bridge. There's something in the design of this that's going to make it easier to get on and off there. Right now, you just kind of pull out, you have to block the frontage road that's beneath it, and is it just gonna be we're reconstructing the bridge, it'll have the exact same function as it had before, or will there be improvements in getting people to hubs and out those neighborhoods?
So we've talked, number one, from a getting over to the intermodal center standpoint, we're gonna start construction on the pedestrian bridge, or UTA. We're participating in it, but UTA should start construction. We're keeping our fingers crossed.
The one like second west? It'll be further over though, right?
Yeah, well, first west, so it'll be one block over. And fingers crossed, they should get the final review and approval from UPRR, within the coming weeks, and can start our construction, you know, in next month or two, so we're hoping. But that'll help get it over. We have talked about the possibility of, and it would still need to be some discussion, with both the project, since they haven't started the construction on the building, and with UDOT, to see if both are amenable to providing some sort of pedestrian access from, the bridge, because it's going right over in front of the building. Does it make sense to do a connection to the building? So we brought it up, but
I was actually
Where is that?
specifically referring to vehicle traffic. Pedestrian, those are great suggestions, but I'm just thinking of, if we're gonna feed all the traffic out on 500 South onto this bridge from this, what used to be no residences, and that will now be thousands of residences, I'm going to assume there's going to be more traffic coming off that street than we've ever had before. Is there any tie in there with a ramp or anything that brings them without having to cross over that frontage road, or how is that tied into the project design?
Like, do you want
go
to?
ahead, yeah.
So what, the current proposal right now, just for context, the west frontage road will be closed and it'll be replaced with a 10-foot sidewalk. East frontage road is proposed to remain open, including those business accesses there. But the challenge with this bridge is you have to touch down, you have to get back down to grade at 5th South and at 780 South. And, so there's not, right now, to accomplish getting over the railroad, which is a higher than normal clearance, and getting down by those intersections, there's not any current proposed ramps or anything. It's gonna look very similar to what you have right
But
now.
if you close that frontage road on the west side, that will take care of some of the problems.
Yeah.
And the increased in, or,
Mill rate development, that was part of the discussion. They're anticipating, they are anticipating the frontage road, being closed. We told them that was almost assuredly gonna be the case when they came through. And then we're also doing, part of their team is gonna be doing, modeling as, what this means to the, you know, depending on how things can touch down and everything, what that means to the traffic. That is part of the design process.
The west frontage road in front of Mill Race goes away essentially, and there's just a sidewalk there that is in front of Mill Race, basically.
Yeah, correct. And on the southwest quadrant at the Intermodal Center, that road will also close.
100 west. 100 west at 600.
No, the frontage road on the west side.
Yeah.
I can,
The thing that kind of loops around and hits right back into the south side of the bridge that you can't see anything, so it's not a very safe, way to pull out onto the street anyways.
Wait, I lost what you were saying.
Are you gonna pull up the map?
Could you pull up a map? I'm trying to look at Google and follow it, but a map would be helpful.
I would like
on
to
the
see
same
it.
page.
We're all in business.
Cause the 5th South intersection was my number one concern. Lisa already brought it up, but that intersection is so awkward right now, and you see people trying to turn left where they probably should not. There's not space, and
Well, that's a good question too, coming down off the bridge, facing north and wanting to go west.
yeah,
There's gonna
that's
be a
where I
turn
see
lane
people
there.
stopping it. It's not, there's not
We
space
should,
for it.
yeah, we should
It'll
probably put a raised median there
Yeah.
to prevent that.
so this is the frontage road on the west side.
And I've never seen anyone try to go through on 5th South across University, but
I have, and it's crazy.
oh yeah, I
Yeah,
Because
people
you
do,
can't see
yeah.
very far to the south,
it's
and
not
then, trying to-
and you've gotta look up, yeah.
yeah.
We should block that.
Yeah, my preference would be to close that entire intersection.
Right in, right out only, yeah.
Plus,
Sorry.
there's a light at the next one up.
So that frontage road right there becomes just a 10-foot sidewalk.
All the way between.
Basically between a retaining wall and a building.
Was there anything else that's being closed?
Yeah. This is the Intermodal Center on the south side. This west frontage road will also be closed. This access is proposed currently to remain open.
That means anyone going to the businesses on the other side
East side,
would have to
or over here,
turn in there.
there's,
Oh, they'd have to come around at that,
yeah.
through East Bay that way.
Yeah, so the east access currently proposed to be a one-way northbound street, both on the south side and on the north side of the bridge.
Just won't be
Something that we have asked them to, that has come up in the discussion, that is gonna be, probably more UDOT's decision than maybe HDR's decision in terms of the actual bridge construction. That we anticipate that the UTA hub will be, redeveloped in the future and won't just be parking, it'll be, kind of a part of the transportation-oriented development, zone. And so it'll have, you know, a mix of things there. And so I think from a staff standpoint, we've asked them to keep the road that's coming from the east side to the intermodal parking lot so that there's an additional way out for the businesses. But UTA is supportive. We were supportive of closing out that frontage road, but we need UDOT to we've asked UDOT to work with us on what we could do to still get another connection at some point when that redevelops, not totally lose the connection everywhere from the bridge all the way down to 920 South. I think to make development work better, we'd like to get some sort of.
Yeah, and I think along with that connection, I would encourage you to, also think about bikes. I mean, the bridge has bike lanes, and I don't know what's gonna happen to the bikes on the south side of that bridge. And that may be a part of this project, or maybe it should be, or maybe it won't be, but like, yeah, how do I get from UTA train platforms to that bridge to go north?
Yeah, we're gonna have a meeting next week to talk about that, but I guess the short answer is, right now you would have to come down 100 West, 920 South.
And then go across 7 lanes of traffic. Yeah, so what I do is I go under the bridge and do a
one-way traffic
flip,
for a little bit.
It's not even one-way traffic though now. Like there's a stop sign.
Oh, really?
For a stop, it's not a one-way street right now.
Well, and it depends again on which way you're trying to get to, but again,
Right.
the pedestrian bridge, which will have elevators for bikes to be able to go over,
I mean, the answer right now is free
here.
that.
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't you also be able to go on that east side frontage road and merge onto University?
You have to get across the train tracks.
Oh, instead of going out the west side of the train track?
Right, and
coming
that's what I
down
do
through kind
now.
of stuff? Okay.
Yeah. I'm saying, why are we spending space on a bike lane on the bridge if there's no connection onto the bridge?
Was there a separate bike lane inside the barrier? I don't remember.
It's in the shoulder. Both directions, northbound and southbound, there's a 10-foot shoulder, the bike lane's in the shoulder. It's not a dedicated bike
But
lane.
it's inside the barrier that separates the sidewalk.
It's outside, it's
It's
on the
on the
roadway
traffic
side of the
side?
barrier.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you getting rid of the little curve around road at the end of the bridge?
Y or R,
Why? You're getting rid of that?
safety concerns.
Oh, so that whole road will be gone, not just the
That
one?
little hairpin. Yeah.
And so you'll have to go down to 920 and come in the south entrance?
To widen the bridge, most of the widening is going off to the west.
To the west side.
I mean, your presentation was about aesthetics. My sense is that this is not the forum to really input on that. My sense with aesthetics is just, let's work with the architects at the site adjacent and find something that is context appropriate. I mean,
My 2 cents on that, I'm not a designer, but I would love to see something in line with the theme of like Provo flag with the sky and the mountains and the lakes, some sort of form on the side that has beautiful natural illusions.
3D print on it, yeah.
Yeah, but the colored thing underneath was nice too, but let's not go with the rust color, let's go with something that doesn't look like rusty metal. But yeah, I know, but I'm not
nice too over there.
I love that.
I was just thinking, you would probably wanna do, I think we should do the lamps that were in the
I like the
second
lamps
picture
too.
you showed, just because that's what they've got in the neighborhoods throughout Provo City. So if you were to combine Welcome to Provo with the lamps across it, and maybe the fence, like, I'm not crazy about a chain link fence, I
Yeah.
think a wrought iron fence would look nicer, but I
That's
did
more
like the
expensive.
chain link fence in your second picture that had the paint on it, so that it didn't look like a chain link fence.
Flat powder coating.
Yeah.
That's what we used on the lamp too.
Good, tie everything together, black
Yeah.
powder coating on both.
If you just had the fence rails have that powder coating, and then it wouldn't look as, I know there's high-speed traffic, even though it's not a high-speed limit there, people are silly when it comes to bridges and low visibility, and so you do wanna on the sides for.
Is there anybody here from development that could speak to what's gonna happen on the east side development-wise? Is there any, I mean, with the intermodal center, with everything that's happening there, do we see that industrial redeveloping on the east of the bridge, or any idea what the property owners are gonna do?
The feedback, so we have had in the meetings that we've had with HDR and UDOT, development has been there, representatives from the development team, at all of our meetings. And the initial feedback that we got is that there's not anticipated that, especially there on the southeast side, there's no anticipation that that's going to be something different than, industrial like it is right now, not in the near future.
Okay, so just to be clear, so between 900 South and the train track on the east side, they're not anticipating any redevelopment, that'll stay industrial?
Right.
The reason I asked is if it goes residential, if someone decides to build an apartment building in there, I'd really want to focus on getting pedestrian traffic across University, and it looks like there would only be two choices, 920 South, and I don't know, is there any, I guess you said there would still be connection up just south of the railway track, right?
Yep, right here.
That'd be a great.
We could have better lighting.
So let's see, so that's how many blocks? That's like 3 blocks with no access in the middle. So I guess we'd be forcing it to stay residential. But if we anticipate for the next 40 years, which is probably the life of this, I don't know if the bridge is going to be there for a while. If we think it's going to stay
75.
residential, then it doesn't, 75, okay. Then it doesn't matter. But if that ever gets developed and goes to high density housing, which makes sense by an intermodal center, because where else are they going to put it? And they've already got one going in on the north there. Then we've just kind of killed all of the pedestrian access across there because of the embankment, right?
That's true. Yeah, the embankment will start at 780 South.
780 South.
What we have now.
It is.
Yeah, you can't get through anyway
Yeah.
right now.
The idea is
You
to
can go
touch
under the
down
bridge
in the
and
same place.
just walking all the way. It's not a super long.
Okay.
I get the need for the embankment, but I wish we could keep it as spans as it is, because just being able to see underneath makes it all feel so much more open and comfortable, whereas embankment walls, it just closes things off. But I know that's a huge
The embankment separates the two sides completely. But it looks clean too, Clancy, I think. When you leave them open underneath, they're kind of a struggle to keep them looking good.
But it cuts off.
It cuts
splits
off,
the-
it's killing all the access and the visibility, I agree.
There's the little path, but you can't see, so you're
Yeah.
now got a 40-foot wall.
Currently, the embankment, the existing embankment goes from 780 to this line you see right here, and that's where the by.
But it's not tall enough to walk underneath.
Mhm.
Uh,
Okay.
Yeah, it's about 5 feet right at the abutment. I mean, the trade-off with the access is that there's also quite a bit of nefarious activity underneath the viaduct.
Yeah,
That was my point.
that's what I was trying to get at. It's right. Okay.
But we are looking at,
Where am I gonna park?
trying to help with pedestrian access, especially, at least going up and over the bridge and then over to the side where we are, at least the plan right now is leaving the east, frontage roads, available because of the business access that's needed, across there. I know one of the things that I noticed is because the Food and Care Coalition is down off of 920, east of University, there's quite a lot of pedestrians walking over to that. So we need to, again, we'll have that meeting next week, but we are keenly aware and
and look for ways to.
There's always people walking across. And I love the fact that it's gonna be divided. I wish the bike traffic were also on the side of the sidewalk. Huge improvement in.
Do we put the bike lanes on the other side of the barrier? Does that interfere with drainage or something?
That would widen the bridge.
How wide is the bike lane and shoulder?
Why can't you just trade it off? Why does it have to widen it?
Cause UDOT requires a certain amount of clear shoulder.
Oh, and so right now they're,
The
both
bike
of them
lanes
are
can't be
overlapping the
shoulder.
same
Well,
distance.
it's 8 feet plus 2 foot shy meaning you have to have, there's a immovable.
I would say the city should encourage UDOT to talk about that, because we don't have a 10-foot shoulder anywhere north of here. So,
Right.
I mean, that's not gonna be a situational difference that's gonna shock people if we cut that shoulder down so that we can put the bike lane on the other side
And
of the
frankly,
barrier.
shrinking the shoulder will lower the speeds,
Yeah.
which is what we wanna have
A 10-foot
happen
shoulder,
coming into
people-
downtown
yeah,
Provo.
exactly. We wanna slow people down. We
It's
wanna slow
mostly
people
there's a
down
light there
here,
that's
so
almost always
they're
red,
all
well, on
gonna slow
north.
down when they get to Third South.
Yeah, well, and we may, I can't, I can't remember what the year is, but I think the part of the making them wider shoulders is the unknown of what traffic, I mean, we know that the county's gonna continue to grow, what people's driving habits are in the future as we try to provide more options. We don't know for sure, but creating those bigger shoulders gives us the opportunity to where if we do have, high enough traffic that those can be.
I get that. I would rather have a better bike and ped facility for what's happening now than extra shoulder, just in case we need it maybe someday in the future.
Could we see that cross section again, so I can,
Hang on, let me just clarify that. It would, what Rob was getting at is it could be restriped for 3 lanes in each direction. 4-foot shoulder.
Yeah, I understand that, yeah.
I just see the cross section with the bike lanes.
So again, so to
Bridge.
do that,
Oh,
a
you're
4-foot shoulder would be okay then. Why can't we be okay with it now?
Yeah, that's, I'm not the right person to answer
Right.
that question.
I think as a city, we should push that with UDOT, because we wanna slow people down there. Otherwise, they'll be going 45 over that bridge like they do now.
What's the design speed that UDOT's assuming for this?
40.
And if it's 35
It's
south
35
there
as soon as
and
they get
north
off the
of there.
bridge, why don't we change the design speed to 35?
Yeah, that bridge currently, I don't know if anyone's walked over it recently. It feels really scary as a pedestrian. You're close to the lanes of traffic, they're going fast. It's not a bridge I like to walk over, right? And even
why-
driving when I see people walking along there, I kind of cringe because they're so close. So I don't think currently it's not a good pedestrian bridge, let alone a bicycle bridge, or, I don't think it's good for either. Is there something we could do to improve, or is our goal really to move them over to the pedestrian bridge on First West, right? That's why, are we trying to allow pedestrians and bicycles over this bridge, or are we trying to shuttle them somewhere else? Because the design this design to me doesn't look very friendly to bicycles or pedestrians. But maybe we don't want that, right? I don't know, I'm asking.
Well, I feel like this design to that question is considerably better than what we have now, right?
Yeah.
You have, instead of a 4-foot, no protection sidewalk that's a foot off the surface of the roadway, you have 6-foot sidewalk with how tall is that parapet? A 3-foot,
42 inches.
42-inch parapet between you and
Okay.
the cars, 10 feet of space. So I think that this is a much better design than we've ever had, or really could come up with maybe. I think the question is, that parapet, should the bike lane, which side of the
I think it
parapet
should
should the bike lane be?
We'll look at this, like, we don't need a
12-foot
12-foot
median,
center lane,
yeah.
no one's turning anywhere on this bridge. If we cut that to a 4-foot painted median, that gives us 4 feet on each side. We can take 6 feet of the shoulder, put it on the other side of the barrier. We've got an 8-foot shoulder, a 12-foot path, and a 4-foot median. It's the same exact width,
Yes.
is what
So
you're already talking about.
There is a left turn lane at 50 South and at 720.
But we want to close
That's
that.
fine. So
We want to get rid of that.
So we eat the shoulder a little bit at the entrances, and then it necks down.
Well, we'll take a look at that, I guess is the short answer. There are some things, so the other thing that we've considered on here is that as as bus rapid transit continues to expand into the South County, this is gonna be, going from north into the thing and then coming out. This will be, probably handled more, well, I guess not necessarily just in the South County. There's a central, or a Utah Valley Central Corridor plan, I think. Anyways, but there's gonna be a lot more bridges a lot more, buses in the future coming over this.
So do you intend that
So,
center lane, do you intend the center lane to become a dedicated bus lane then?
Well, I think because of where they need to turn, we need to take a look at that. I guess what I'm saying is that we will discuss. There's maybe some things that may be happening. I mean, I think we would hope that they'd happen in the sooner future than the later future that we'll need to take into account. But yes, we can have that.
I even feel like if you have the bike lane and the pedestrian lane on the other side, sidewalk, you could do a 4-4. You could stripe it 4 and 4 or 5 and 5, and it doesn't have to be as generous in size because protecting that bike lane on that overpass would be a higher priority for me than a super wide sidewalk.
Yeah, so we have talked about doing a shared use lane on the
West side.
right?
As long as it was striped, because bikers tend to think they're the only ones there till they come upon a pedestrian. I would want it to just be labeled as such, but I don't think it needs to be as wide if they're both sharing the space.
Just to summarize so I think we can use the cross-section a lot better. We've already talked about that. I agree with what people said about fence. Design underneath, like I think Joy said, I'm not an architect or a designer, but I think we can do something nice. Even like, there's a lot of great murals downtown. If we can plan for some of those walls to have cool murals on them to brighten the space, and it's not such a big ugly wall.
Use the wall space well, and I also like the lamppost idea.
Point out one thing in your aesthetic discussion is UP trains are gonna be going under this bridge and exhaust will stain the girders, so black.
Maybe not spend all our money on paint for the girders. Right, okay.
Well,
But you're saying that
paint for the
with
girder is
murals
already
too,
included.
right? Any murals?
Yeah.
No,
At least 8 colors.
I would say generally the exhaust is limited to the girders and the adjacent bed.
Okay.
I think the walls would be unaffected.
Yeah, especially where the UP tracks are just south of 6 South. So you got 6 South between the UP tracks and the north, abutment, and then you've got the, UTA tracks between UPR and the south. So, yeah.
The only other thing, and I'm not trying to dampen anyone's aesthetic ideas, this bridge will be seen from the Intermodal Center and from 6 South, but that's about it.
That's kind of my view. I think the aesthetics of the bridge should take on the nature, well, okay. I don't disagree with what any of you have said about making it look nice, but where it's sitting, it's mostly connected to the Intermodal Center and the new apartment complex to the right, to the top there. But it seems to me like it should take on the character of the Intermodal Center, because that's what it feels like it connects to me. That's what it's by, and to put a lot of city branding on it, I'm not sure it's our front gate or anything. I'm not a.
I think we're taking city branding as you drive over it, like a welcome to Provo or a street light. So that from the vehicle perspective.
Oh, from the vehicle perspective. So you're talking more lights on the top and rather than what's on the sides. Okay, the sides, I kind of like the idea of it taking on the character of the Intermodal Center, because that's where it is. But I agree completely. As a motorist, it'd be nice if there's some indication that I'm arriving in Provo. So I agree with you. Maybe the money, the aesthetics goes on where the cars are driving as an entry, or pedestrians or bikes, right? Rather than so much on the sides, because I don't think it's that visible. That's why I asked, is it going to stay industrial on the right? Kind of where it's at. I think we should maybe focus on the top, what it looks like. I really like the way you put that. Let's focus on the motorist and the pedestrian and the bicycle going over the bridge, maybe having it taking on the character of the Intermodal Center from the side. That's my 2 bits.
Although I did like your suggestion that whatever 1 inch deep
Formliner?
facade there is on it, it could take on, the pattern of Provo's, you know, the Welcome to Provo icon. Or coloring, you know, it doesn't have to be 3 different colors, it could just have that shape to it so that it.
Do another entry arch on
Well,
this.
if you're a motorist, you've been in Provo for a mile now.
Yeah.
But you're entering a new district, you're entering
Right.
downtown, so
It
we
could
need
have the downtown
we need to
neighborhood sign on it and the.
signal that transition. If you're entering the intermodal hub, you are entering Provo from transit.
That's why I feel like that west side should, as it faces the train station, should have
Yeah.
whatever facade you want to look nice should be on the
Yeah,
west
it's like
side.
that's like the Provo, it's the Provo front runner station. You've arrived, so I think if we can make it connect nice to that arrival, that intermodal center, right? You've arrived as part of the station, you're here, you're in the city. So I guess my point was just not disconnected from the intermodal center. I like the idea of welcome to Provo, but it's kind of connected to the intermodal that kind of plays with that intermodal station.
What we could potentially do as a thought with that is, get with Casey from our team and see what, get the rendering of the pedestrian bridge and see, I mean, we could use and see what could be used.
Oh.
On
So those two tie in
so
together.
those two tie in together, kind of.
That would be
That'd be good.
nice.
One other comment, in the 75 years that this bridge exists, it's very likely that Front Runner double track to the south, and you will enter Provo from both directions.
But if we just do something simple, it doesn't have to be a giant mural, it can just have that blends into all the other signage around.
Okay, any thoughts we haven't covered yet before we'd like to jump to item 2, make sure we have enough time there?
Well, you can just tell we're TMAC because we're more concerned about the access and the mobility than the way it looks.
I think that was good.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Let's jump to item 4 then, safe routes, and thank you for being here, HDR, appreciate it. Let's jump to item 4, safe routes to school, Rob.
All right. So, I'm gonna go over,
Pretty impressive PowerPoint.
it has some, has some pictures, so I wanted to make sure you guys, were able to see what it is that we're doing there, but, let me see if I paste it onto the desk. How did that space there? I wonder if something's going on with our server right now.
Right click it, can you turn it to a PDF?
Dan, would you mind running up to your, computer and seeing, so this is under TMAC presentations 2022.
Okay,
See if you can.
Could you throw it on this real quick?
right on that.
Yeah, or just, if you can print it out to a PDF from, you know, I don't know if it's something to do with this computer, but if you can print it out to a PDF that I can open up here.
Okay.
Try that.
Safe routes to school,
This
not
is
the
a Provo
Center
City thumb drive, so.
Oh, hey,
Yeah.
a very
Sorry,
fine
I'll
one.
just-
So-
I can start the discussion
Kurt,
without the picture.
would your presentation be available for us, or, that would be
Yeah.
great to have that,
Send it to you.
that would be awesome, thank you.
So, Safe Routes, I can start the discussion. Safe Routes is organized, per state law, at the district level. And so it's run by the school district, but it has representatives from, engineering. So right now, that's Alex Judd, who is, Safe Routes, by law have to be done. Safe Routes school mapping and program has to be done for elementary schools, can be done for middle schools. That's an optional. And so right now, at the district level, it's being run by, Alex Judd, who's the, assistant superintendent over elementary schools. And he has done a great job with it. And we have representatives, from the, Provo Police. That's John Orgill is the main one, and then also Jana Lee Holland. John is the sergeant over school resource officers. Jana Lee is over the, crossing guards. And then I'm the representative from engineering. Dixon Holmes, who's the assistant CAO, is the representative from the administration. And we, in general, what we have done is we'll go to a training. The school district does a training in early fall, within a month or so after the school year begins. We'll go and do a presentation to them about safe routes to school, remind them of that. This is with all the elementary school principals, remind them about that, and then we open up with, there's an online spreadsheet where they can meet with their community councils, and they provide any feedback, any requests that they have for that year. We request that they put those in by November. That gives us some time to do some analysis if we need, and come up with a plan to then present in the spring if they're asking for changes as to what our feedback is on, the group's feedback is on their requests or recommendations. And then that gives us a chance to get some funding together when we're actually doing changes, built changes, get funding together to then be able to construct in that summer and have it ready for them that next fall. That's kind of the general approach that we've taken with safe routes. And if we can get the presentation open, I can show you all the very many things that we did. We really focused last year on, we received a lot of feedback from the schools. We were able to reorganize, kind of get it reestablished to a better, organizational standpoint, and everybody involved who's supposed to be involved. And so last year we had a focus on, we had a lot of feedback from the schools. Provo Police gave us a lot of feedback on crossings that they look at, that they were having trouble. Let me see. I don't have to talk about it without any slides. All right, so.
If you actually show something, could you share it remotely? If you get it working?
Oh, yeah, I can. Yeah, sorry. First slide was. We can. Where's my? Oh, it's okay. There we go. All right, there we go. So on our traffic safety committee, which, like I said, this is a committee that the state law requires. They call out 5 different people who should be on there. We have not had somebody. I need to talk with Alex and see who we may be able to get from the school PTA program, the district-wide PTA program to be our representative on there. But Alex Judd is the representative from the school district. Again, Dixon Holmes from the city administration, Sergeant Norgill from law enforcement, and then myself from engineering. And just getting into this, improvements that we did. So again, 2021 was a much bigger, we did a lot more changes than we had in years past, really doing a focus on, let's try to address as many concerns as is possible. Last summer we put in, there's been this crossing, this has been a recurring concern.
Can I have a standing ovation?
I know. You say that so humbly, Rob, but it was amazing. It was a total re-energizing of the safe routes, and reorganizing. Appreciate that. Well done.
Thank you.
This particularly, this is my school, and it's been scary for years, and so we're very grateful for that.
You came to my school and got thoroughly grilled by our community council and handled it very well. So I'm
go with that.
watch that.
Yeah. So, and I now have a daughter going there, so that's
Great.
Good introduction.
Make it fabulous. Good.
So here on Center Street and 6th East, this has been a recurring, problem area. There's the big roundabout here, and the concern was that a lot of people are taking that roundabout really fast and just continuing at a high speed through there, and especially if there's a good crossing guard, but if he doesn't happen to be there, that there's really no protection on a fairly wide street. And so we put a median refuge island in the middle there. So we put that in next year, and I'll give a little teaser that there's more to come that I'll get to later for this intersection that we're planning. We've actually already started doing this year. Another, one is on West Center Street out towards, the airport or the marina. The turn at 2530 West, into Amelia Earhart, it had been, just striped as a 2-lane road, and there's quite a lot of stacking as parents are dropping off their students. There was a lot of stacking, and what people would do is, this was a parking lane, and what they would do is they would just try to jump around at the last minute, the cars that were stopped to turn left, without really paying attention to the fact that there were kids crossing the street right on the other side of that intersection. And so, we did an analysis to see, okay, we talked about a few things, but then just did a count, and it ends up that this needed to have, a dedicated left turn lane. So we striped in the left turn lane, and we made the transition long enough to where by the time you're separated out into the 3 lanes, you've got stopping sight distance, before the school crossing.
Are those cars facing north in that picture?
These are facing west, so this is going out towards the marina. So westbound Center Street turning south onto 2530 West.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
Is there any way you could zoom in on your,
Thank you.
maybe more than you want, but
Yeah,
that's much better.
It's great.
So I'll have to zoom in a little bit to here. This one, hopefully this is clear. Maybe not. As I tried to do it in just one long stretch, it just, again, wasn't the size to be able to really see anything. But the crossing here, 9th East, so State Street is just south of here. This is Provost Elementary, and Provost Elementary was redone a couple of years ago. The main entry into and out from the school was further south, but they moved it right up to the property line, which put it right next to the school crossing of 9th East. And so what we did is we moved it north to 460 South. So that was moving the crossing, putting in new ramps, and then also moving, this is a 20 mile per hour reduced speed zone. So we needed to move the flashing lights to the correct location.
Is it still striped for the old crosswalk there?
No. So this is the plan that we put together. So this is the, showing the existing striping, but no, this was taken out, this was ground out, and
Nice.
the crossing is now up here.
That's my kid's school, that's been a
Even,
problem for years.
yeah, even off hours, that crosswalk felt awkward because it's so close to
To the curve also, yeah.
Easy,
Moved it away from the curve, yep. We worked with the school district. This is, so we actually live in the Sunset View. My middle daughter is finishing up her last year there. But this was actually on the school district. Well, back behind this fence is an easement for the city for a sidewalk coming to the school, but when they redid the Sunset View the entire site, the school and the entire site, for whatever reason, this ramp up into the parking lot from this crossing was not redone, and so we worked with the school district and got this ramp redone into the school parking lot.
This is on the east side?
Oh, yeah.
It was on the east side, yeah.
It's just a ramp to nowhere.
Yeah, it had come up, so there was a ramp, and then they regraded and moved the parking lot and the drive aisle closer to it, and it made it steeper, and they just never did it. So we worked with them about, meeting ADA standards on the slope, so they took out a couple of sections of the crosswalk here and did a gentler slope up into the. And then there were all sorts of locations. Here's several of them. This is actually not even, well, I guess it does. It says various along 500 North because there's a crossing on 500 North, just north of Timpanogos Elementary, that crosses 500 North, but we did school at all the T intersections or several T intersections leading up to that. We also put the school striped in the school crosswalk so that it was clear to people that were turning onto or off from 500 North that there were kids crossing there. But there's a bunch of places where it was just putting in new ADA ramps or putting in the higher visibility school crosswalks, putting in additional signage to meet current standards. there were a lot of locations where we did that. So there are some ongoing challenges. The number one easily is that it's hard to get and keep crossing guards for all the school crossings. So the Provo police take care of that. And a lot of times when we're asked about different things, it's wanting to put in something that would then turn it into would have to be a crossing guard crossing. One of the locations where we'd have to do a crossing guard crossing, and we already the police already have a hard time staffing just what they have, because it's only you're coming one time for about a half an hour, 45 minutes in the morning, and one time half an hour, 45 minutes in the afternoon. It's the equivalent, I think, of $30 an hour, but you're only working a total of about an hour and a half, and so and split out 2 times a day. It's just not enough. Even if they up the pay, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, it's not convenient for a lot of people. So they have difficulty. So we're looking at ways that we can try to make crossings safer without having them be crossing guard crossings, and making sure that we're putting our forward. We worked with the police and the community councils on saying, okay, we need to make these right. Yes, we'd like to put 6 at this school, but we've got 3 that we can commit. And so what's our top priority 3, and we'll put those as the priority 1. We need the crossing. We need the crossing guards to always be there, and then if we can get extra, we'll focus on these other ones. And then the number 2 challenge is finding funding for some of the larger projects. As a for example, here just south of Foothill, as it ties into Canyon Road. Maybe I'll zoom in here. This is it's a small section that chose to stay outside of the city, so there's a small section of county within the middle of the city boundaries, and the sidewalk is missing along that street. So it would be, well, it was about $500,000, maybe more like $600,000 or $700,000 with the way prices are going now to do it. We'd have to work with the property owners to take some of their right-of-way to be able to get the curb gutter and sidewalk in.
It's just on the west side.
Just on the west side, yeah. So there is a crossing, and there is a crossing right here, but to be able to get rid of it's places that we've looked at and said, hey, if we continue the sidewalk up to the next crossing, then we could get rid of one that needs a crossing guard right now. And some of these ongoing, yes, it's difficult to find crossing guards, but we have a few of these where at $700,000 a pop, they're not really easy to just go, and we don't want to have that type of cash sitting around that's not already dedicated, in a pipeline of projects. So some of these, that's an example. There's another one further south, leading up to 3700 on Canyon Road also. This one is in the city, but again, these are older homes, and they were never redeveloped. Typically, when we redevelop, that's when we work with the developers to pay for the curb, gutter, and sidewalk in front of their projects. Just has never gone that way. Another one here. The one here. So my sister and her family just moved to Provo, and her daughters have to use this crossing, and it's a terrible crossing. It's a crossing guard crossing with a reduced speed zone.
Is that 3700 north?
This is also 3700, yeah, north.
So that's where Will's pit stop would be, the far right side of this picture, and then that heads up to the view on the left?
Well, Will's pit stop is down off of University, so it's off here to the west, but this is Canyon Road again.
Yeah,
This is
that's
the hill.
the hill, curvy hill, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think this is the car wash, I think.
Yeah.
So this one is
There's no
more like
sidewalk
$1
there.
million plus, because this is a very steep drop off, so you have to, put a bunch of retaining wall to
So you want a
widen it out
sidewalk
another
on,
6 feet.
so they have to cross over to
So
the
they gotta
north,
cross
they can
over,
walk on the sidewalk.
And everybody's coming down here. My sister told me that 80 minutes. I said, yeah, I already know. It's a terrible crossing, but I need $1 million to $1.5 million to fix that. So at least, I mean, it's a bunch of retaining wall. So there's I guess I could let that in twice. We've been asked to do things along Geneva Road. That's UDOT's facility, so they do have plans, but it's several years down the road of when Geneva gets the funding to redo that one.
How far north is that?
So this is 2000 north up here.
Okay.
So there's a small group of kids that if we had sidewalk here, they'd have an easier walking path to school. There is a crossing down at the light at 1390 to get them to school, but there's not a sidewalk They have to walk on the dirt instead of on a sidewalk to get there. Again, this is Sunset View Elementary, 600 South. This is another $1 million+ project, and so adding up all together, we're probably talking about $5, $6, $7 million to be able to get.
Aren't there some projects that have recently been approved along that corridor that are going to improve some of that sidewalk?
So this is, street right here is the one that Kelshaw Lane was the one that connected into here. And then they're doing sidewalk further down. There is one.
Nothing along 600 South.
Nothing along 600 South. There's one that's been coming in, that's come in that should, if they haven't been approved, should be approved soon, but
Yeah.
take care of a little stretch here, but nothing along 600 South. So there's ongoing challenges. We've put these in the pipeline. We show them to the city council, letting them know, hey, sometimes they do have, funding, federal funding laying around. This is one of the options. If you, if this is your priority, we'd like to get these things done. So we include these on our, budget for the last few years, but, they're not funded at this point.
How do you triage which ones get funded and which ones? I've been on the community council at Centennial before for years, where they've been saying, we want a crosswalk kind of by the fire station because there was one further north on Canyon Road. And we met with the city, and I assume it's because it's a middle school and not an elementary school.
So that's.
How do you determine whether it's Sunset View or Canyon View that gets the funding for the project?
So there's two things. That particular one, is because, it's not only, I guess, that the boundary for the elementary school is right there on Canyon Road, so there's nobody crossing, there's no elementary school kids crossing there. I would like to be able to do something even for middle schoolers, but one of the things there is that, it's proximity to two curves in the road, and the fact that our public, sidewalk, understanding that there is a sidewalk that goes through the church, but from the safe routes perspective, you're not supposed to use private sidewalk, you're not supposed to have a safe route along a private sidewalk. And so we said, look,
we can't fund something that's not in our.
It doesn't make sense that, I guess that we haven't made that the priority, considering the other public infrastructure to make it I guess officially a safe route, we'd have to put in. But on some of these things, it depends on how many, in terms of what we prioritize or our suggestions, that we give to the council. It depends on how many students are using it. It depends on how many students are using it versus how much it's gonna cost. If 10 kids are using it and it costs $50,000, we can take care of that. If it's 10 kids using it, but it's gonna cost $2 million,
Yeah.
that's,
It's a tricky thing,
It's a
because
tricky
a parent would argue, but it's the safety of
It's
one
the safety of the
child,
kids,
and I'm
which
like, well.
I totally understand. But $2 million from our budget, that's a huge
Because I
project.
often wonder how much of the Safe Routes program could be addressed with education instead of infrastructure. Because a lot of this, for the example, the Canyon Road one, that is way too expensive in a lot of people's eyes, shouldn't these kids know how to cross the street safely by the time they're 14? Shouldn't parents be teaching their kids how to get to school? Like, there's some element of parents driving and kids walking and parents walking with their kids that should be like a life skill at some point. And so I've often wondered,
You're right,
we
but
can't just put it on a map and hope everything magically gets fixed.
I think drivers are the bigger
Drivers
problem.
are the problem. Well,
But like signage is cheaper than flashing lights and whatever. So if there was something where, that educates the public as they're passing through an area.
Well, my question with the Amelia Earhart thing is why do we have to have so many parents driving their kids?
Exactly, we have neighborhood schools, we fought for neighborhood
Like,
schools.
the problem there is not a road issue, it's a demand issue. And how can we shift the demand, make the road safer by having fewer cars there in the first place?
But which some of those things will resolve, as the west side, builds out. I mean, part of the stuff on, for example, in Amelia Earhart is if you.
It's so far away.
Yeah, right, and the things that are surrounding, there are homes that are next to it, but there's also big fields with nothing in there, and so they have a lot bigger boundaries where people are coming from further away. School district, I think it's 2 mile, if I'm remembering correctly.
Well,
But
and that's
Provo
2 mile
is a great
radius,
example, we live on the far.
No one should have to drive out.
We live on the far outpost of Provo, and my kids walk to school every day.
Yeah.
Wasatch should not have
And
a
there are
carpool.
backups on both sides of the school to drop kids off, and so I'm like, how much of this is just getting people to adapt to a different way of life or paying attention to what they're doing instead of.
So I agree. I know. So we've talked about it. We have become better organized this last year.
Good.
We took care of some of the infrastructure stuff. Again, in 2021, we're doing some more things which we'll go over here, go through right now. But 2021 was a big infrastructure focus. But there are some strides that still do need to be made on the training.
I don't know how you do that, because it's like, it would have to happen to every school and every parent.
Many schools are having, like, when Rob came, we had that conversation about how do we educate the parents? What do we do on our side, right, to take over from the school side? And so I think those conversations are happening.
So some of the discussion items, and actually since
That's up and running.
so yeah, it's working now. So I put this together for last month, and then some of these things we've actually
Right, what
moved
does
on
RRFB
last month.
stand for?
So there's a rapid flashing beacon. So like in front of the rec center. But this is up. This one, Tim from our group has got up and running already here.
So it's something that someone can activate as a pedestrian.
Yep.
Nice,
Yep. So if the crossing guard isn't there,
nice.
kids can hit the button. Get
They're
flashed.
gonna love that.
It's awesome. The police department is gonna see a significant loss of citation revenue.
Okay, which I think they're fine with.
Yeah, they don't have to park there all morning anymore.
So another one that the team is looking at is somewhere in this area. So right now, there's a crossing right in front of Dave's Market that nobody uses because it's too
They all
far
cross
south.
at the corner.
So they all cross somewhere up here. So we're trying to, so he's talking to the group that owns this, and then the donut shop, and then the company that they're renting from, or leasing from. But maybe it's on this corner, or maybe we have to move it south here, but somewhere here, we're going to put a crossing because there's about, I think we estimated 150 to 200 high schoolers that cross that street, for lunch to get over to the Days Market area to get some food. And so we're gonna be putting one of those rapid flashing beacons there, for them to.
Does that count from last year, or has that been counted this year?
That count was from last year.
Hoping that it's better because they used to just go for 2 hours last year when they weren't taking attendance because we don't need to get into that. That was exciting. That didn't be last year.
Those kids are my
It's a
favorite.
different meeting.
So, and then we've been working with our power department to get better lighting at some of these crossings. So they've already, this is where the high school student, if you guys heard, got hit last year on Canyon Road. It is a reduced speed zone, but obviously the high schoolers are crossing there before the crossing guard gets there, and it was dark. So they put a newer LED, which gives a brighter but more focused, shine, on the existing pole on the west side, and I believe that we worked with them to get, working with them on a few, but I think this is one where we got another light on the east side also, but that's one of our focuses, is working with them. Particularly at crossings, but we have gotten calls in a few places where people would just like, in general, where people are walking down the street to get some better lighting. So we're working with them this year to focus on that. And then, speaking of Wasatch, we met with Joy and the community council group to talk about different intersections, kind of focused intersections here.
It's a new site.
For the new Wasatch site. So we'll see whether we get funding to do it this year, but there's some things that we feel like we'd like to get done before the school is completed. One is to put in a new, this actually, we found that already warrants from a safety crash standpoint, and then we'll also is projected to warrant from a volume standpoint. It's just under right now, and we project will just be over when the school moves here. So we'll get a signal in at 820 north and 900 east, and then
A signal will go in there.
a signal will go in
Because you can't
here.
turn out there right now without it, right?
You
It's
can.
impossible to make a turn on the 900 east right now.
People try, and we have the crash data to show that it's not that easy.
It's not working.
So, yeah.
But the
So,
crash
yeah.
data's not alone not enough to warrant a signal?
No, it is. I would love to say that as soon as we find out that an intersection is warranted, that we have the money sitting there to build it, but we don't. We do have the money now, so Kang and I are gonna be working on, the design, and there is some additional, right-of-way or easements that we're gonna need to get from the corner properties to be able to fit it in there. So I don't know that we'll be able to put it in this year, but our intent is to put it in, next year, so it's there before the school opens.
Does anyone bust it off?
The Hills neighborhood?
Yeah.
Well, way up on the bench.
Well,
Yeah.
And then there's also a lot of travel from Seven Peaks. That's why we have a carpooling, is because if you have a kindergartner walking all the way from Seven Peaks, you have to worry about that.
And there's also, so my first grader, and then, I have my youngest is going into kindergarten next year, but he will start in first grade. We live on the southwest side of town, but this has the Chinese immersion program, and so we were told about 25% of Wasatch is outside of the
It's
boundaries.
actually more a third, actually.
Yeah, but it's a huge
Yeah.
Because
number.
people come from all over to do the Chinese immersion.
Yeah, we have
That's
probably
why we have carpooling.
1/3 of our neighborhood.
But go ahead.
Goes to Wasatch.
Yeah. So that's gonna be, like I said, higher utilized. So yes, it does warrant from a crash standpoint. We're getting the funding together. It'll also warrant, so anyways, it warrants. And then we're gonna try to get in, we're hoping to get the funding to be able to put in some bulb outs. Well, there are, I guess, bulb outs on Locust Lane here. There's development that's being proposed there. Well, trying to get these intersections a little bit closer together to where the crossings are shorter. And then the big thing is, on 1450, there's sidewalk down to this point, but there's not sidewalk, continuing down and going around the corner. So we're hoping to get all that stuff in before Wasatch is.
So is that gonna be a
completed.
staircase? Cause that road is very steep.
It is very steep, and so it's not gonna meet it's not gonna meet the ADA standards in terms of slope, but ADA does give exceptions. If the street is already above their
You're ready to
slope,
build
then
another
there's really nothing you can do.
And we saw the, plans for the new school just last week, and they have a sidewalk coming down and around that should be, well, not
That'll
be too
be
steep.
so nice.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a car catcher.
So we have told them that we need to see, exactly what the grading plan looks like right now, but which they are, because we're doing it for them. Or the city there was a participation on all sides in terms of the overall transaction, and the city's, contribution is that our crews are doing some of the rough grading on here. So this will be dug down, but we've told them, we feel like there should be some sort of barrier, so that cars coming down
don't end up in
Don't fly out over the
don't end up
playground.
into the field while
Yeah.
elementary school
Yeah.
students are playing out there.
When they're not doing it.
This is not related to this specifically, but will the relocation of Wasatch, mollify the opposition to putting a UVX stop at Ground Nights
Yes.
Music Building? So is UTA planning to make that happen?
Yes.
Good.
I know they've had more conversations with being met with less resistance.
Yes.
It
So,
is already largely mollified.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's been that way for.
yep. So they are, the administration did, just some feedback, meetings. I don't remember exactly when it was, earlier this year. I think it was January or February, with the one up at, Wasatch, it was somewhere up in the neighborhood. I can't remember exactly where it was now. But then another one at the rec center that was just more of a citywide. But there was one that was, like I said, I can't remember exactly where we met. But it was up in here with the neighborhood,
I
to
think
get
it's
their
on Open
feedback.
City Hall too.
Yeah, and it was on Open City Hall where people could give their feedback. And yeah, there was no opposition.
It was
but
the complete opposite though of what the last
significantly,
conversation was, yeah.
significantly more support. I mean, significantly more support than there was opposition.
So
So it's moving forward.
awesome. Yes,
UTA is putting in for funding for the 26 year funding cycle to get those constructed. Because UBX stations, because of how much concrete, those are between 4 and 5. The two together, that station will be about $4 to $5 million. That's
Is
not a huge
BYU
thing.
going to use that site for anything other
No,
than?
not
You don't
yet.
think we don't know. We don't know. Somebody in the city may know. I don't know.
That's enough for that, thank you.
It hasn't come to the planning commission yet.
All right.
I have no secret hope there.
I would encourage you to oppose the parking lot.
Okay.
So do y'all have any questions regarding safe routes?
I wanna say thanks. I mean, 5 years ago, I first got involved on a
This
community
conversation
council,
wasn't-
and it was a black hole, like, so I appreciate what you and others have done to helpful, so thank you.
It just seemed like 5 years ago, there wasn't even a pathway, like, the right hand didn't know what the left
You
hand
had
was doing.
you had to talk to 3 different groups and,
And then the
find
police
the right
officer would
person.
change, and then
Yeah.
the engineering department would change, there wasn't having a committee in charge of this, and people that have a name and a face is gonna make a huge.
Yeah, well, a lot of the credit really does go to Alex Judd. It's run, I mean, like I said, per state law, it's run from the school district, and he's done a good job of.
But that's
keeping
what makes
organized.
it tricky, is those community councils are not actually school district bodies,
Yeah.
and they're the ones that have to write up the plans, and then they enter
Right.
them on this state website that maybe nobody even looks at. So unless you have somebody
group,
saying,
yeah.
look at our plan,
Yeah.
there's no conversation about how to make those plans happen if they require change.
okay, well, thank you, Rob. Committee members, that's the end of our agenda. Is there anything else we need to bring up or anything? Okay, we will go ahead and adjourn then. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Isn't it
Okay,
so
thank
exciting
you.
to see how Provo's moving, moving, right?
Yeah. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, see ya, bye.
Awesome.